Hello, game theorists. Today we are still in Chapter 6, combining sequential and simultaneous moves. We saw earlier how to go from sequential games to simultaneous games. Now we're going to switch directions. Now, we do have to modify our approach a bit. The issue is that in the sequential games we've seen earlier in this course, the players always knew what all of the previous moves had been. Now, when you're playing a simultaneous move game like rock, paper, scissors, you don't know what your opponent is going to do. We had to somehow tweak our setup of sequential games to account for that uncertainty. So, I mentioned this before briefly, but a simultaneous move game does not have to be played literally simultaneously. Let's say you're playing rock, paper, scissors. So the way it's normally played, you make your move at the same time as your opponent. It doesn't have to be that way though. So I could go write down my move, rock, paper, scissors, and then go put that in an envelope and seal it so you can't see what I did. Then I'll tell you, I made my move, go ahead and make your move, and we'll see what the outcome is. So we could take turns. I write down my move first, then you write down your move, but you don't see what I did, and it's going to be equivalent. So we're taking turns like a sequential move game, but there is less information than what you're used to seeing. You don't know what move I wrote down in the envelope. The way we do that is with an information set. So let's call it info set. So you circle all the nodes. Remember, in a game tree, we have nodes for the parts that make a decision. So to continue my example, if we're playing rock, paper, scissors, I made my move, I wrote it down, but I put it in a sealed envelope so you can't see what I did. So I moved first, we're in a game tree, and now you don't know which part of the game tree we're at. We could be the game tree node where I've played rock already. We could be the part where I've played paper already. Or it could be the part where I played scissors. You don't know. You have this information set around those three possibilities. So let me show you what that looks like with a game tree. So let's say our two players are who are some of our volunteers. We had Allie volunteer to be in included some examples. So maybe Allie moves first and plays either rock, paper, or scissors. Who's Allie playing against? One of our other volunteers was Tim. Tim also has those options of rock, paper, or scissors. So Allie makes her move first, and she writes it down, puts it in a sealed envelope, so Tim doesn't know which one she's played. So Tim is uncertain, are we over here, are we over there, or are we over there? And to reflect that uncertainty, I'm going to draw a circle around all of those nodes. So remember, these are nodes in a game tree. This is also a node up here. So after Tim makes his move, you open the envelopes and find out what each player did and who won the game. But at the moment, though, and Tim is making his decision, he's not sure what Allie did. So that's how we show Tim's uncertainty in a game tree. Here's another example. We'll revisit that example we had earlier with one tweak. So we had Jake who could play either A or B. In response, Richard over here could play either X or Y. So in the game we had before, Richard knew if Jake played A or B, and after observing that, Richard could then choose, do I want to play X or do I want to play Y? Now, what if the game was set differently so that Jake writes down A or B, puts it in a sealed envelope, and says, I made my move, your turn now. Richard wouldn't have to pick X or Y, but Richard would not know if A is played or if B is played. That's going to look different. So the game looks like this. Now Richard picks without knowing if he's here or if he's there. So here Richard has full information. He knows what happens before he picks. Here he's in the dark, and that circle there tells you the difference. Now this will change Richard's options. So here in this game, we said in our last episode that Richard had 4 strategies. Remember? Richard could play X if A, X if B, X if A, Y if B, Y if A, X if B, or he could play Y, Y. In this game, though, Richard only has 2 options. You can't play Y if A, X if B. That's because, again, Richard does not know which one Jake has picked. If you don't know what Jake did, you can't condition your response on what Jake did because you don't know it. So this will make us change our definition of a strategy. So before, we said a strategy tells you what you do at each one of your nodes. Here Richard has 2 nodes and has 2 branches at each node. However, if there's uncertainty like this going on, then your options are more limited. So more precisely, a strategy is going to specify your action for every possible information set. So you have 2 nodes, but you only have 1 information set here. There's also some flexibility in how you write these games. You can think about rock, paper, scissors again. So I make my move first. I write it down, put in an envelope and seal it. Then you make your move. So you have I move first, then you move. Alternatively, though, you can write down your move first and you put it in an envelope. Then I make my choice, and that would be equivalent. So this game between Jake and Richard, where Jake moves first and Richard, could be rewritten in an equivalent way where Richard moves first. So that would look like this. So here we have Richard. So Richard could play either X or Y. Jake is uncertain about which one has been played, so we'll draw an information set around Jake's nodes. Nevertheless, Jake still has to pick A or B, so those are his options. So this game and that game are going to be equivalent. So way back in chapter 2, we had this list of 6 considerations for thinking about games. One consideration was about the information available to the players. So you could go back to the original game where here you still have Jake moving first, and then Richard moves second, but Richard gets to observe what Jake does. Before picking X or Y. So in this case, if we're over here, there's no uncertainty. Richard knows he's over here. So you can draw an information set around all the possible nodes you're at, but here Richard knows it's over here, so there's only one possibility. So you have a small information set there. Similarly, if you're over here, Richard knows he's over there, so there's no uncertainty. He's at that node or he's at that node. No other option. So you draw another information set around that one. At the beginning of the game, Jake knows we're at the beginning of the game, so there's also no uncertainty for him. You can draw an information set around that. So in this game, you see there's just never any uncertainty. Jake always knows where he's at in the game tree. He's never uncertain about any previous moves. Richard also knows where he is in the game tree. Again, no uncertainty. A game like this is one that's said to have perfect information. More generally, if every individual node is also an information set, then it's a game of perfect information. So this game has perfect information because there's no uncertainty about where you're at. This game over here would not be perfect info. That's because now we do have some uncertainty. Richard knows he's going to be up here in the game. He knows when the game starts. Jake, though, is uncertain if Richard has played X or if Richard has played Y. So there's less than full certainty, not perfect information. According to our definition down here, though, there is one information set for 2 nodes. So not every node is its own information set. So that's not perfect information. Now, sometimes a player might be informed of a certain move is played, but be uninformed about other moves. So maybe if a game between Yusuf and Yusuf can play A, B, or C. And then there's player 2. Who is our player 2? I feel like there's one volunteer I haven't included yet. all right, include everybody. So we'll be including some people in multiple examples. That's okay. Let's have Allie be in our example again. So perhaps in this game, Allie's going to know if A was chosen. If B or C is chosen, then Allie's going to be uncertain. She'll find out later, of course, when she gets her payoff at the end of the game, but right now, when she's making her choice, she's uncertain. So that's another way a game could be set up. It's not always the case that you're uncertain about everything. You'll have to always circle all the nodes. There are some ways to show a game where you're uncertain about some moves, but not uncertain about others. So before we can explore in greater depth the similarities and differences between rollback and Nash, we got to define something called subgames. The short way to define it is just a game within a game, but we can be more precise than that. So a subgame always starts at a single node, and the rule is that it can't break any information sets. By that I mean, if one part of an information set is part of the subgame, then the other part had better also be part of the subgame. So I can't have just this one here without that one, and I can't have just B without C. They're part of the same information set. So for some examples, we'll just revisit the games we've used earlier in this chapter and count the subgames. So in this game, our player over here knew if A or B was selected. So here's one subgame. Starts at a single node, so you can check off that one. Also, there's no information set to break, so we're not violating rule number 2 here. This is another subgame. Starts at a single node and no information sets are broken, one important thing to keep in mind, the whole game is also always a subgame. Thus, we have a total of 3 subgames. Now, in our variation of that game, it's going to be different. So you have this variant where Jake picked first, A or B, but Richard was just in the dark about which one was selected. We indicated that with an information set saying that Richard doesn't know if we're here or if we're there. He's uncertain. How many subgames here? You could be tempted to make this a subgame, just this one over here. However, that would break our rule. So that can't break any information sets. I can't have just this be a subgame because that would break this information set. If I'm going to include this part of the information set, I must also include that part. So I can't do just that. I can't do just this one here either. I also can't do just these two. That's because a subgame has to start at a single node. This has 2 nodes. So the only subgame for this example is the entire game. Starts at a single node, doesn't break any information sets. If the whole game is part of this subgame, then that whole information set is also included. We had one more example game. So we had a game where our first player could pick A, B, or C. Then our second player could pick X or Y. But there's only some uncertainty. We were uncertain if we were here or here, but we knew for certain if we were there. How many subgames? So this is a subgame. Let me put my definition again. Starts at a single node, check. Does not break any information sets, so there's only one information set here, so it's not being broken. So that's a valid subgame. This by itself over here, that is not a subgame because that would break this information set. For the same reason, this one over here after B, that can't be a subgame by itself because that would break this information set. Just as we saw before, you have to start at a single node, so I can't do just this bottom part. I can't do just that because that would be 2 nodes, not 1. That means I gotta go all the way to the top. That starts at a single node, and include the entire game, then we're not breaking this information set. That means we have a total of 2 subgames. And now we get to the distinction between Nash and rollback. The term rollback equilibrium, though very intuitive, is actually not the most common term in game theory. It's usually called in most other books and articles subgame perfect Nash equilibrium. Often just abbreviated as SPNE. So the requirement is that to be an SPNE, subgame perfect Nash equilibrium, your strategy is to be a Nash equilibrium not just in the whole game, but also in every subgame. So Nash equilibrium just have to be a Nash equilibrium in the whole game. This is an extra requirement saying it has to be a Nash equilibrium in the whole game and also in all the subgames. So it is adding an extra restriction to what our solution can look like. So that's, in theory, the difference between Nash and rollback. To see some more examples, be sure to tune in for our next episode.